Welcome to the podcast marketing training session. This is your host, Seth Green. We will go ahead and get started in 3 minutes. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is Seth Green, your host, and today you're about to discover how to stop being the best kept secret in your niche. I know how frustrating it can be to do a great job serving your clients, but struggle to get the attention and attraction levels that you know you deserve. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to share with you, what if the top thought leaders in your industry took your call, endorsed you, and sent out emails and social media posts on your behalf? What would that do to your reputation in the industry? What would it do to your client base? What would it do to your bottom line? We're going to cover all of that. And at the end, I will even show you how for free you can get on my top-rated podcast and appear next to Dan Kennedy, Roland Frazier, Russell Brunson, Joel Comm, etc., and get the first chapter in your book done for no cost whatsoever. So let's dive right in. Let's get to it. I'd like to ask to you, please, no distractions. Hopefully you have turned off your email, turned off your cell phone, turned off social media so that you can play full out and pay attention, because the better notes you take, the more you will get out of this. You should have your podcasting action guide printed out next to you. We're going to go through that as we go through today's session. So, who am I? Why should you listen to me? In case you don't know, I have written 5 best-selling books. My 6th book just got picked up by a major publisher, so I'm excited to have a bucket list item crossed off of having a book in Barnes & Noble. I've Dan Kennedy, the #1 marketing guru on the planet. I have been fortunate enough to be the only person in history who he's ever nominated for his prestigious Marketer of the Year award 3 years in a row, which is really, really gratifying. And I've also been interviewed all over quote unquote real media like the Wall Street Journal, CBS Money Watch, CNN, NBC, Fox, Boston Globe, Miami Herald, to name a few, plus a bunch of other places. But it didn't start out that way. I actually started out as a Syracuse Orangeman. I go Cuse. I went to Syracuse University, and my original undergraduate degree was in acting. My life ambition at the age of 18 was to be a Broadway star. And you see how that worked out. The reason why it didn't is because my senior year, 2 of my friends and I decided we were going to produce an interactive murder mystery musical called The Mystery of Edwin Drood by Charles Dickens that nobody's ever heard of, for very good reason, which was our first mistake. Our second mistake was that we knew nothing about marketing, which I'll get to in a second. So we produced, we formed a student organization, we went to the student government, and they gave us the money to produce the musical. And all of a sudden I was a producer until night when the student government sorry stake, the Syracuse bylaws prohibit us for that much money. So we're taking half your budget back. We just wanted to let you know we already removed the funds from your student bank account. And I was left with a choice. We could close the show because there was no way to produce it on half the money, or we could find another way to make up the funds. Well, if you remember the movie Top Gun with Tom Cruise, you'll remember this guy, the Admiral, telling Tom Cruise, son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash. That's what my ego did. I didn't want to disappoint everybody and close the show. So I came up with the brilliant idea to charge the budget for the show on my credit cards. And I figured that we'd make the money back selling tickets to our show that no one had ever heard of, knowing nothing about marketing. What do you think happened? Right, Jay, when you don't know what you're doing, it doesn't tend to go so well. So what happened was at the end of the year, I went to my two friends and said, listen, guys, this is the deal we made. We didn't sell enough tickets. You guys got to go get credit cards and do balance transfers. So we each have a third of this, like we agreed to. Well, my friends stiffed me. Their parents, they went and asked their parents if that would be okay. And their parents, of course, told them it wasn't. So I got stuck owing all the money. And I had no way to pay it back. So I went bankrupt. I had to go Chapter 7. And that was probably the worst day of my life, sitting in bankruptcy court and listening to the trustee look down his bifocals at me and say, I don't understand. Your application says this is for a musical. I've never seen that one before. You know, most people go bankrupt over medical bills. Explain this one to me. And I had to explain what happened. So I decided that perhaps I shouldn't be a producer or an actor. I should be a financial advisor. It's a logical career choice, right, Jack? Going from actor to financial advisor. I figure, hey, I'll tell other people not to borrow a bunch of money and gamble on something they know nothing about. So I went to work for a Fortune 500 company named A.G. Edwards, and there were 6,700 financial advisors just like me. I was the 6,699th ranked advisor. I was one up from the bottom. I was in last place because I was doing what my branch manager taught me, which was to interrupt strangers by cold calling them and asking them for money. And I made 300 dials a day, every day for years because I didn't know any better. I don't know if any of you can relate, but that sucks. Cold calling sucks as a way to make a living. But I had that. But in my spare time, I am a professional magician, and I had the good fortune to be reading a magic trade journal that I subscribed to, and one month I found a full-page ad for a marketing course for magicians. And I didn't have any money, so I asked my parents to buy it for me instead of my birthday present, which they agreed to. I used other people's money, and I got the marketing course. I implemented it. That's a big key. I actually implemented what I learned. And in 30 days, I became the busiest, most expensive magician in Buffalo, where I live. So the transformation worked. So I went to the guy who sold me the course, whose name is Dave D. And I said, hey, Dave, would this work in my real job as a financial planner? He said, yes. I said, where did you learn it? He said, Dan Kennedy. So I started buying Dan Kennedy books and Dan Kennedy products and learning everything I could. Some time goes by. I have the also good fortune to find and woo and marry my soulmate, my lovely wife, Rebecca, who you'll meet in a little bit. And then about a year goes by, and I get fortunate enough to do a consultation with Dan. And Dan says, you're doing everything your industry teaches, which is completely wrong. You shouldn't be cold calling. You shouldn't be mass mailing seminar invitations. That's not how direct response marketing works. So he said, write me this really big check and I'll change your life. So I said, okay. And I went home to my wife and I said, Rebecca, I know 12 months ago, we got married. 9 months ago, we bought our first house. 3 months ago, we had our first baby. And 3 weeks ago, you quit your job to be a stay-at-home mom, leaving me the sole breadwinner for our family here. And I'm cold calling. But I need to go borrow a whole bunch of money to go hire this guy, Dan. And she said, no. And we repeated that pattern every day for 30 days because I kept asking until day 31 when she said, you better pray this works. Well, it really worked. In the first 2 years of working with Dan, he quadrupled my production. And I went from the bottom of 6,700 financial advisors to the top 30 in the country. which was unheard of in financial services. So all of a sudden, my phone started ringing with people who read about me in financial trade journals and financial books who wanted to know how I did what I did. And I said, Dan, what do I do? And he said, you start a marketing company and you start doing this for other people. And that's how we got here, because about 9 years ago, actually, now I started Market Domination LLC. It started as just me and one client, another financial advisor. And now we've got an office building full of a wonderful team and hundreds, thousands of clients all over the country. And obviously we've branched out to other industries. So let's talk about why podcasting, which is what you're here to learn about today. So make sure you have the action guide printed out. You're going to start filling it out. A podcast, number one, a podcast is like a radio show on your phone. It's like a radio show on your phone. I've written the book that just got picked up by a major publisher, Podcast Marketing Magic. And I also have a top-rated podcast, which you can listen to for free, called Direct Response Marketing. So why is now the time, if you're not already podcasting, to start? Well, what you're looking at is number 2, CarPlay. This is Apple's CarPlay, and it will cause the number of podcast listeners to triple in the next 4 years. Right now, there are 1 billion people listening to podcasts. By 2020, it will be 3 billion, because Apple has made a deal with almost every major car manufacturer that the next new car you buy, the next generation of cars, will come pre-bundled with the Apple Podcast interface. And it's a native app on your dashboard, which means you can't delete it even if you want to. And it means even if you don't have an iPod, iPhone, iPad, or iMac, you're going to have an iCar, whether you like it or not. So 3 billion people, but Apple basically tried to do away with terrestrial AM, FM radio. Time is now to make sure that you show up in front of them. So iTunes is not a social network, number 3 on your action guide. iTunes is a media platform, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I want to debunk some myths I hear all the time. I hear the only way to build relationships with thought leaders and the gurus is to pay them lots of money and go to their events. Join their $25,000 mastermind group, and then maybe they'll take your call. Maybe you could work with them on something. That's just not true. Most thought leaders are constantly looking for more exposure. So if you add value by having them on your podcast, it's the fastest way to get in the door. I've done it for myself, and we've done it for dozens and dozens of clients. So for example, I'm sorry about the graphic right there, but if you go to ultimatemarketingmagician.com/podcast, you'll see episodes I've done with Russell Brunson, Roland Frazier, Perry Marshall, Sally Hogshead, Larry Benet, Dr. Ivan Misner, and the list goes on and on and on. Amazing people, Dan Kennedy, amazing people who've been on my podcast. Now, I am not in Russell Brunson's $25,000 mastermind group. I am not in Roland Frazier's $25,000 War Room mastermind group. I am not in Perry Marshall's Bobsled Run mastermind group. I have never been to a Perry Marshall event. I have never been to a Russell Brunson event. I have been to a digital marketer event. However, they're not making a ton of money off of me. It's not like I'm paying them a bunch of money and they owe me a favor back. They are doing my show because I'm adding value to them by putting them on it. Now now I can hear you saying in your head, well, that's great if you've got a ton of listeners to your show, and that's why they're doing it. And people tell me that all the time. Well, it matters how many listeners you have. It really doesn't, because it's so early in the podcasting movement that nobody knows to care about this yet. Some people do. A lot of people don't. So for example, this is the Outdoor Boardroom podcast for our client, Gary Okino, who's a golf coach. And on it, he interviews large company CEOs who play golf, and they talk about golf and life and business lessons learned on the golf course. Now, when Gary started the podcast, he had no list. All right, he had 10 listeners. One of them was his wife, and the other 8 worked for me. So he had no listeners, but yet he still had the CEOs doing the show. And no CEO has ever asked him, how many listeners do you have? They just don't ask it because, oh, it's a podcast. Podcasts are new. Podcasts are sexy. People do them. Another myth I hear all the time is that a thought leader in your industry, and you don't have to be in the marketing space for this to work, but they say they won't promote you unless you have a big list. Now, that is true if it's a traditional email swap. So I email for you, you email for me. You're going to ask me how many people are on my email list, what my open rates and click-through rates average, and I'm going to ask you the same thing because email's been around so long. But this isn't true when it comes to podcasting, simply because it's not done that way. It's not done that way yet. Will it get to the point, 5-10 years from now when people are saying, well, I'll do your show if you tell me, depending on how many listeners you have, and you tell me you have to do my show, we have to swap, and they have to be even. It may get to that point, but we're nowhere close to that. So you might as well, make hay while the sun shines. So for example, this is Ivan Misner. The founder of BNI, the largest referral networking organization in the world, literally the world. If you go into the podcast app and search Ivan Misner, here's what comes up. I come up number 1 when he appeared on my show. He has 438 episodes with his name on them. I have 1 episode with his name on it, but my episode ranks higher than his does. And if you search under podcast, he comes up number 1. I come up number 2. I don't know if you can tell, but this is I Love Marketing podcast with Joe Polish and Dean Jackson, and mine ranks ahead of that. And they've got more listeners than I do. So it's all about how you market the podcast and how you play the podcasting algorithm in iTunes, which I'm going to share with you some tricks, if you're okay with that. So having a podcast, number 4 on your action guide, having a podcast makes you a reporter. And number 5, reporters interview people. Now, if you're a reporter, it's a really different relationship because reporters have the ability to grant what most people want more than money and sex, according to Mary Kay, and that's recognition and fame. Think about it. If you got interrupted by a cold call to sell you something, I've had that happen once today. One managed to sneak through, and I hung up. However, if it was a reporter calling to interview me or get for a book or a podcast or a newspaper or TV, there's no way I'd hang up. I would take that call all day long because it would grant me exposure, and it will work the same way for you too. Now, this is John Cito, a client of ours, who was trying to get in with New Jersey divorce lawyers. He's a New Jersey financial planner specializing in divorce. And the thought leaders in his industry, the people he wanted to take his call and send him business and send him clients, were New Jersey divorce lawyers. And he was having a heck of a time. He couldn't get in no matter what. He sent flowers, he sent fruit baskets, he made phone calls, he sent letters and got nowhere. But when we sent our direct response marketing campaign to those divorce attorneys to schedule them for an interview in his book and on his show, all of a sudden, they're taking his call, they're meeting with him, he's loving life. Because now he's the reporter granting them recognition and exposure, not the guy trying to sell them something. So again, iTunes is not a social network, it's a media platform. Oh, this is my wonderful wife, Rebecca. And now we have 3 kids. Ella is 7, Lily is 3, and Max is 9. And the other bigger reason why I do what I do, these are 8 of these 750 third world entrepreneurs I've been able to help make microloans to through kiva.org, where we loan them money to start their businesses or grow their businesses to help them get out of poverty. Because it's entrepreneurs who are going to save the world, not our government, regardless of who gets elected. Okay, so what are these steps to a successful podcast? And you want to make sure you write these down. These are not on your action guide. The first thing you need is a concept and a name. And we'll talk about that in a minute. You need interview questions because you're a reporter, you're interviewing someone. It should follow a certain structure. And you need to book your first guest. Now, I mentioned earlier that I would share with you some of a couple quick tips on how I got my Ivan Misner podcast to rank higher than Ivan Misner. So iTunes has a search engine algorithm for how it decides where shows rank. So if you go to iTunes and you type in personal branding, the number 1 podcast when I took the screenshot was Life is a Marathon. But that's not really the name of it. The name of it is Life is a Marathon, Life Coaching, Self-Esteem, Personal Development, Personal Branding, Positive Thinking. And the author's name is Bruce Van Horn, life coach, motivational speaker, thought leader, author, blogger, runner. Why would he do that? Why is he putting all that in, why is he putting all that extra information? Because those are keywords he wants his podcast to rank for. And Apple gives you all these characters, all this free real estate to use for your name. They know nobody's name is really that long and their title. So use it. It'll help you rank better. It also shows up in the description. It also shows up in the description of every episode. That and is a bit, I mean, he's got episodes where it says popularity. Nobody listened. Very few people listen to him. But every episode done right helps your show rank higher. You see how that works? You guys starting to get excited on how this could work for you? Think about that. Every episode, you could put a link to your website in the description of the show, in the show notes. So what happens then? So if I've got 20 episodes, that's 20 links from iTunes, one of the top visited websites in the world, to my website. Free bonus. What do you think that does to my search engine optimization? Certainly doesn't hurt. All right, you also need an introduction for your show. I mentioned that your podcast is like a radio show on your phone. Radio shows have intros. You know, Rush Limbaugh doesn't introduce himself. So you need a voiceover artist to do the voice. It shouldn't be yours. And you need music and you need like professional production. So your introduction should be, and this is number 7 on your action guide, it should be a lead generation ad for your show because you want people to know why they should listen to you, listen to the show. It should position you as the expert in your niche, and it should tell them what to do next because you want to have a call to action in it so that even if they don't listen to the whole show, they still know where to go to get more from you, your website, presumably. Now, number 6 are the 3 magic questions for your interview. I'm going to give you 3 of them. We have a we script all the interviews for all of our clients, but I want to give you a couple magic questions. So question A that you should ask in every interview is, what's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest challenge? And I'll show you how we use these for Gary Okino, the golf coach. So we say, Gary says, what's your biggest challenge in your golf game? Question 2 is, what golf course is on your bucket list? So you got to change that for your market. So you're not a golf coach, so you're not going to ask what golf course is on your bucket list, but you got to figure out what that is for you, or we can help you with that. And then the third question he asks is, who do you want to play with? So if I could wave my magic wand and put you on St. Andrews with BJ Singh and fix your slice in 2 days, would you like to learn more about how that could happen? And the CEO goes, oh my God, of course. And that transitions into a sale of Gary's last golf lesson ever program, which is 6 figures a year per customer for CEOs, which he didn't even exist until we built this podcast, and he never would have thought of, and has completely changed his life. So you want to figure out how those questions could apply, how you could tweak them for your business. The next steps to successful podcasting are you need to get a call. You need to record the interview. So I'll show you an iPhone app you can use to record it. You can use Skype. You can use freeconferencecall.com or Uber Conference. As long as it's something that gets you a decent quality MP3 recording, it doesn't matter. So you actually got to record the interview and get your introduction produced that we talked about earlier. So if I go in the App Store, I'll type in call recorder. That's the app that comes up. That's the one you want. The app itself is free. It will then cost you will pay for airtime, the minutes that you use. So you might pay $10 a month. I don't get paid for recommending that. This is what the app looks like. You buy credits with the blue buy credits button, and then you hit the red button for record. It'll ask you to add a contact, the person you're calling. You'll pick them off your contact list. You'll call them. You'll hit merge call, and poof, you're recording. Then when you're done and you hang up, it will say, you have a new recording. What would you like to do with it? And you say, email it to Seth and his team, and they'll take care of it for you. You also need cover art. Cover art is another ranking factor in iTunes because it's the thumbnail that people see when they search in the App Store. So I'll give you some examples and some principles behind good cover art. So this is the LinkedIn for Business podcast, our client Ted Padromo. So you'll notice we got a nice picture of Ted. We have a microphone so they know it's an audio podcast as opposed to video. We have who he is, we have his website, we have a title, and we've got some nice art in the background that's relevant. Again, Denture Success Podcast. We got Dr. Rick's picture, a mic for audio podcast, the title, and then some teeth and some clean cover art behind him. You don't want it to be too busy. So you've got your cover art. Again, you need that professionally produced introduction, and you need to host your podcast somewhere so that it can get to iTunes, because you can't submit directly to iTunes. There are a bunch of different ways, places to host. I happen to like Libsyn. I'm not an affiliate. I don't get paid for recommending them. Just the one we like. If you follow Libsyn, when you follow the directions, Libsyn will show you how to tell iTunes you have a podcast. And then every time you air an episode on Libsyn, it will automatically show up on iTunes. And you wash, rinse, and repeat. And that's your show. Now, how you're going to turn that into a book is you're going to transcribe each episode and edit the transcription. And then you've got an interview book. So, does this make sense? Now, here's the beauty of it. When you air the podcast episode, the person who is on the episode with you will promote it because they're on it and they're promoting themselves. And then when you publish a book of the episodes, every person who is on it, who's in the book, will now promote the book because they're in the book. So they will promote to their list twice about you because you put them on the show. So does that make sense? Do you see how this could work in your business? Sometimes it requires a little bit of creative thinking on how you can make it work, but think about who would be an ideal referral source for you. Whose clients would you like to get in front of? That could be, if you're a financial advisor, that could be CPAs and attorneys. If you're, let's say you're doing marketing for plastic surgeons, then you'd probably interview a bunch of plastic surgeons on the show, just like Gary interviews the people he wants, the CEOs, to be his golf coaching clients. So you can either interview your ideal clients on the show as a way of building a relationship with them, or you can interview people who have your clients as their clients. So if you want us to do it for you, we will create the podcast, we'll produce and script the introduction, we'll do the marketing to find the guests for you, we'll script your interview for you, we'll edit the audio, we'll upload to iTunes. Then we'll transcribe and edit every episode. We'll do the graphic design, layout, and publishing of your book in-house so that your book will be published to Kindle. It will be published to Amazon, but you will also be able to buy physical copies printed at cost. We're publishing a book. We were literally publishing a book today, and Amazon wouldn't let us price it. They wanted it priced at $34 because it's like 250 pages. They wanted it at like $34, just retail for $34. And the royalty was like $9. So if my client wanted to go buy copies from Amazon as himself, he pays like $24. Our print house can print them for $5 each. So you can buy as many print copies as you want from us, a whole lot cheaper than you can get them from Amazon, but it will be on Amazon and people will be able to buy it from Amazon. We then market and promote the book for you. We provide the marketing materials to send out to the folks in the book and for them to send to their clients or patients, all driving a ton of business and recognition your way, all done for you. Now, our secret sauce is the multi-step, multimedia, direct response marketing campaign that gets those impossible to reach decision makers to participate. And then the direct mail campaign that goes from them in their voice to their clients telling them about you, which is really, really cool because they'll send it out because they don't have to do any work. We write it for them. Now, if you wanted to hire Dan Kennedy like I did to write all that for you, right now Dan charges $100,000 plus royalties in perpetuity, but obviously we're not going to charge you that. There is a firm that competes with us called Tucker Max. Tucker Max will do your book for you for the bargain basement price of $24,000. However, it's not an interview book. They interview you and turn it into a book like an autobiography about you. The only problem with that is the only one who's going to care about that book is you because you're the only one in it. Part of our secret sauce is the fact that we make it an interview book so that everyone in the book promotes it for you and everyone on the podcast promotes it for you. So again, you won't have to pay the $24,000. Tucker Max would charge you for a book that's going to fill your garage, whereas ours is actually going to get you business. So I hope I'm inspiring you. I hope you will be our next success story, whether it's with us or whether you do it on your own and just let us know how you implemented the ideas I've given you. That would be awesome too. Because if all this does for you is get you in front of your dream referral sources and prospects, would it be worth it? Would it be worth the $24,000 even though you're not going to pay that? Of course it would. If all it does is get your book done without you having to actually write it, would it be worth it? And if all it does is get you new customers, clients, and patients on a regular basis, is that worth it? I have to believe the answer is yes. The good news is it's not going to cost you that. It's not even going to cost you $19.97 per month. We're doing a special marketing promotion on this training session. So for the next 48 hours that this is up, it will be half price, $9.97 a month for only 4 months, and you will have a podcast and a book. And the reason why it's for 4 months is because the first month we're doing the research, we're building the list of the guests, we're doing the marketing campaign to get them to be on your show and in your book. So that's all the build out phase. And then the next 2.5 months, you're doing all your interviews. And then the last few weeks, we're publishing the book. So on average, it takes about 4 months. And then at the end of 4 months, you'll have 10 to 20 episodes of your podcast up and a book. If you stick with us after the 4 months are up, you can be done, walk away with your podcast and your book and be happy. But if you stick with us, we'll do your book launch party where everyone in the book has a big party and brings people with them. We try and get local media to cover it and do a ceremony and everything, and a book signing, which is a lot of fun and generates a lot of business. We also facilitate a monthly book mastermind group where everyone in the book gets together either physically or virtually, if they're not all in the same location, every month, passes business back and forth, talks about their business, passes referrals, and it's a way to really put the book on steroids. We'll also throw in a month free of virtual assistant services from our friends over at 123 Employee. And I teach our cutting edge marketing strategies to my mastermind group for 2 to 3 hours every month. And we video that mastermind group for folks who can't physically, fly into Buffalo every month, especially during the winter. And we've got members in that group all over the world. And normal access to that group is $2,364. We will give you a year's worth of it for free. So again, we'll create the podcast for you, the introduction, we'll find and market to the guests for you. We'll write the interview questions, we'll edit the audio, we'll upload to iTunes, we'll transcribe and edit every episode, we'll do the graphic design, layout, and publishing of your book. We market and promote the book. We provide the marketing materials to get the people in the book to buy copies, and then the marketing materials for them to send out to their clients and patients and customers to drive business back your way. All done for you at podcastmarketingmagic.com/done for you. Now, I promised at the beginning that if you stayed till the end, I would show you how you can get on our top rated podcast for free. If you go to ultimatemarketingmagician.com/podcast-guests, you can fill out an application to be on our show, and I will interview you. And not only will you be on my show in front of our listeners base, which is all over the country, probably all over the world by now, on our listener base, but we will also transcribe that episode, edit it for you, and get it back to you to be the first chapter in your book at no charge whatsoever. So again, if you want to be on the show, go to ultimatemarketingmagician.com/podcast-guests. And that's available whether you hire us or not. If you hire us, obviously we'll do that too. But it's available no matter what. And then if you're interested in having us do it for you, go to podcastmarketingmagic.com/done for you. And I'm going to take a breath and a glass of water and open it up for questions and answers. You can type them in the chat box or you can email them in and I will answer them. Oh, okay. I see questions. Okay. I am a financial advisor. How does this work with compliance? Okay, awesome. We've got quite a number of financial advisors who have done this and are doing this successfully now, even at Morgan Stanley, which has one of the most paranoid compliance departments on the street. So compliance is not an issue because the interview questions can be approved in advance and the interview transcripts can be approved and the book obviously gets approved before it gets published. So your compliance department can approve each piece ahead of time so that there are no issues or we can make any changes they need. But I have not had a single compliance department have a problem with it. Okay, I see more questions. Hang on one second. I'm an insurance agent. How would this work for me? Okay, awesome. We got a bunch of financial people on. Okay, so if you're an insurance agent, it depends on who your ideal client is. Um, so let's say you were looking for affluent baby boomers. So you wouldn't interview the baby boomer on the podcast. You would interview the referral source. So this would be CPAs, estate planning attorneys, divorce attorneys. We've got advisor who's doing nursing homes and Medicaid experts because he's a Medicaid planner. It just depends on who else sees your client. And then you want to interview that person because then the CPA or the attorney will buy a couple hundred copies of the book, send it to their clients, and then their clients will come back to you. Other questions? I'm a pediatric dentist. Okay, you'd interview pediatricians, and the book would be about raising healthy kids with a keep your kids healthy and smiling all year long. And then the pediatricians would put the book in their lobby and hand it out to their moms of their patients. And then they would come back to you saying, I didn't know there was such a specialty as pediatric dentistry. I just went to my regular dentist. I'm so glad I found out about you. How long is the book? It depends on how chatty your interview guests are. We will teach you how to be a good interviewer. It honestly doesn't require that much skill. You don't have to be Oprah. You just have to be able to follow a script. But our books are ranging between 150 to 200 some pages. So, it's a real book. It's like a bookstore length book. This isn't an ebook, although we do create a Kindle version of it. And you do get a PDF version of it. If you wanted to put it available as like a free download on your website, you could. But again, it's a real physical book. You buy copies at cost. We don't make any money selling books. So you can buy softcover. You can pay more money if you want and buy hardcover. It doesn't matter to us. If I pay all up front, do I get a discount? Yes, you do. If you wanted to prepay for the 4 months instead of going 1 month at a time, yes, let me know. We'll get you a discount on that. Not a problem. Can you have a bunch of financial advisors in the same city? No, actually, we can't. Because you could have overlap depending on the size of the city. So in Manhattan, we could have it, or LA, we could obviously have there'd be enough CPAs and attorneys, for example, to support a number of financial advisors and never overlap. But if you were in a smaller town, you probably couldn't have a bunch of 3 or 4 advisors in the same town if it was small. So if you go to podcastmarketingmagic.com/done for you and you enroll and it turns out we've got someone in your city and your city's too small, I'll cancel it and refund your money right away. There's only been, we'll publish, I think, what are we publishing? Like 8 books this month. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we're publishing 8 books this month, which is more than a lot of publishers publish. But again, we've only had a couple that have had issues with the cities being smaller or not responding as well. I am signing up now. Awesome. Can I lock someone else out of my city? I don't know. We've never had it. It depends on the size. You mean you want veto power? Yes. Okay. Um, we can talk about that if you want to block out your competition. Never had that question before, but we'll talk. All right. I don't see any more questions. So hopefully we've inspired you. And again, podcastmarketingmagic.com/done for you. We look forward to hearing from you.